Welcome to History Doc.
Welcome back to another Explainer. Today we're doing something a little different, taking a really respectful but deep look at a deeply unsettling mystery. We're going to break down the sheer, terrifying physical and environmental forces behind the tragic loss of an elite dive team in the Maldives. Okay, so let's just get right into it and examine the facts, the science, and honestly, the sheer hostility of the deep sea.
Now, Carlos Somokal, who unimaginably lost both his wife and his daughter in this single event, described his wife as methodical, risk-averse, and obsessively careful. So, how on earth could a group of the absolute most qualified, cautious underwater scientists in Italy literally just vanish without a trace? I mean, if they went into that cave, they knew the risks and believed they had them totally under control. Something down there violently betrayed that belief.
Which brings us to part 1. Into the dark. To even begin to understand what went wrong, we need to know exactly who went into the water and map out the terrifying timeline of May 14th, 2026.
The sheer level of expertise on this team is just staggering. You gotta understand, this wasn't some casual tourist excursion hopping off the Duke of York liveaboard. This was a literal assembly of world-class experts. We're talking about Monica, who spent decades mapping marine ecosystems. Muriel and Federico, both seasoned biologists. Georgia, a brilliant engineering student, and Gianluca, a guy who knew these waters probably better than most locals. And together, they were prepping to descend 60 meters down into absolute pitch-black nothingness.
So, let's look at how that afternoon actually unfolded. 5 divers hit the water for what was scheduled to be a completely standard 90-minute exploration. But 90 minutes came and went, no sign of them. Then 2 hours, then 3. By the time nightfall hit, the Maldivian Coast Guard was fully mobilized. You know, as the hours just ticked by with absolutely no bubbles breaking the surface, it became horrifically clear to the team up top that something truly catastrophic had happened deep inside that limestone.
Moving to part 2, the cave's brutal physics. Because to grasp what stripped these top-tier experts of their defenses so incredibly fast, we have to talk about the violent hydraulic machinery of the cave itself.
The geography of Deana Kandu is, well, it's totally unforgiving. Picture this. It sits on a deep slope about 55 to 58 meters down. Inside, it runs for an estimated 260 meters, splitting into these 3 massive chambers that are connected by super narrow corridors. Corridors so tight, you literally have to swim single file. And at 60 meters down, which for perspective is roughly the height of a 20-story building, the blue and green light from the surface just doesn't reach you. It's an environment of total sensory deprivation. Absolute blackness, zero visibility, and confined rock walls making every single maneuver incredibly difficult.
So what initially went wrong? The prevailing forensic theory right now points straight to the surface conditions. The weather was deteriorating fast that day. They had a yellow weather warning, complete with 50-kilometer-per-hour wind gusts. And in a channel like Deana Kandu, surface wind translates directly into violent underwater energy. Investigators actually think the team was just planning a quick reconnaissance right at the entrance. But sudden pressure changes whipped up this massive siphon effect. Basically, they were caught by an unpredictable, ripping current and unexpectedly sucked straight through the main constriction into the crushing depths, probably before they even had a second to react.
And the absolute kicker here is the extreme depth. At 60 meters down, the human body is taking on 7 atmospheres of pressure. That's 7 times the normal weight of the world at sea level. In that kind of environment, every single movement is completely exhausting. Turning around in those tight corridors, nearly impossible. And, as we're gonna see, the simple act of breathing itself turns into a deadly, high-stakes calculus.
All right, part 3, a devastating rescue effort. Because as the alarm went out and the Maldivian National Defense Force desperately scrambled to respond, the brutal physics of this cave started claiming more lives.
On May 15th, military divers pushed through the incredibly narrow passage between the first and second chamber, and they made a truly heartbreaking discovery. They found the body of the team's leader, Gianluca Benedetti. But forensics noticed something deeply alarming. His tanks were completely empty. Now, a diver with his kind of vast top-tier experience just doesn't passively run out of air, right? The evidence tragically points to him exhausting his entire supply, desperately trying to share gas, trying to keep his team alive as hypercapnia, which is this overwhelming, suffocating buildup of carbon dioxide, and quiet drowning set in.
You see, a cave rescue at this extreme depth pushes the absolute physical boundaries of human survival, mainly because of decompression sickness, or DCS. Under that immense pressure, inert gas actually dissolves straight into your blood and tissues. If a rescuer stays down even a minute too long or ascends just a bit too fast, well, Henry's law dictates your blood can literally no longer hold that gas. And then Boyle's law takes over, forcing that trapped gas to expand into these highly destructive bubbles. It's just immutable physics. Dissolved gas violently shreds blood vessels, which leads to immediate paralysis and catastrophic organ failure.
And tragically, it was this exact, ruthless physiological reality that claimed sixth victim, Sergeant Major Mohammed Mahmoudi, who was literally one of the military's most elite, experienced tactical divers, tried to push into the third chamber to find the remaining 4 scientists. But the sheer immense physical and mental load caused severe decompression sickness. He passed away, despite really intense medical intervention. This loss was just devastating. It actually resulted in state mourning and forced the entire government to immediately suspend all military diving operations, leaving the 4 remaining victims sealed inside that deepest chamber.
This brings us to part 4, the physiology of depth. With physical rescue efforts totally halted, we really need to look at the invisible, physiological killers lurking right inside the diver's own tanks, the things investigators believe disabled the team before they could even attempt an escape.
Okay, the terrifying math of breathing under 7 atmospheres ultimately comes down to something called partial pressure. It's basically a measure of how highly concentrated the gas you're breathing becomes when you're under extreme depth. So standard air is about 21% oxygen. At 60 meters, that hits a partial pressure of 1.47, which is already floating right with the absolute ceiling of what is safely breathable. But here's the catch. The live aboard boat routinely filled nitrox tanks for their recreational guests. A common blend is ENX32, meaning 32% oxygen. If these scientists were, for whatever reason, mistakenly breathing that specific blend way down at 60 meters, the partial pressure spikes to a highly lethal 2.24. At that density, the life-giving oxygen itself literally mutates into a deadly poison. And when you cross that lethal threshold, it triggers something called the Bert Effect. This is a physiological reaction that hits your body like a sudden lightning strike. It causes severe central nervous system oxygen toxicity. We're talking a sudden, highly violent convulsion. The diver instantly loses all consciousness, their life-saving regulator is just ripped right out of their mouth, and drowning follows in mere seconds. No warning, just lights out.
But wait, what if their gas blend was actually perfectly correct? Well, the environment at that depth is still highly toxic to the human mind. At 7 atmospheres, all that excess nitrogen interacts directly with nerve cell lipids, causing severe nitrogen narcosis. People often compare it to being drunk, but at 60 meters down, it completely short-circuits the brain's prefrontal cortex. It totally strips away a diver's ability to evaluate any kind of risk or solve even basic problems. Suddenly, something as simple as a tangled guideline in the dark transforms into a completely unsolvable, terrifying labyrinth.
So when we pull all these factors together, it creates what experts call a terrifying cascade of failure. Imagine this. One slightly misplaced kick disturbs millennia of fine limestone sediment, creating a massive silt out. Instantly, visibility drops to absolute zero. At the same time, narcosis is already heavily dulling their minds. Then, either oxygen toxicity or hypercapnia triggers a sudden physical collapse in one or maybe more of the divers. And finally, the team leader completely exhausts his own air supply, desperately trying to save them. It is quite literally a perfect, deadly trap that no amount of human expertise can easily overcome.
Which leads us to part 5. The investigation begins. Because with 4 bodies still unrecovered deep inside the Earth, the focus has entirely shifted away from an active military rescue into a high-stakes, unbelievably complex forensic investigation.
First off, the recovery tactics themselves had to radically evolve. See, the military was using standard open-circuit gear, which exhausts massive bubbles with every breath. Inside a tight cave, those bubbles smash into the ceiling, constantly disturbing that ancient silt, which instantly blinds the divers. So they brought in Finnish civilian specialists. These guys use highly advanced closed-circuit rebreathers, running on something called Trimix, which is a custom blend of oxygen, nitrogen, and crucially helium. The helium drastically reduces the narcosis effect, and the system produces literally 0 bubbles. This allows them to stealthily, silently navigate those claustrophobic corridors without blinding themselves in the process.
Meanwhile, back up on the surface, prosecutors in Rome have opened a massive, formal inquiry led by Magistrate Francesco Lavoie, and man, they are moving incredibly fast. They are desperately trying to piece this timeline together. The digital dive computers they recovered from Benedetti's body, they're under intense analysis right now to figure out exact depth times and descent rates. But crucially, all the gas blending logs and compressor records from that live aboard boat have been strictly embargoed and confiscated. Investigators absolutely need these documents right now to prove exactly what chemical mixture of gases was loaded into those tanks, triggering this whole fatal chain reaction.
Which really brings us to our final, lingering thought for this explainer. Despite all the cutting-edge technology and the truly tireless, heroic efforts of international recovery teams, 4 elite scientists still remain in that third chamber. They've been resting there longer than human beings have ever been able to dive into it. As the investigation just slowly grinds on, sifting through embargoed logs and recovered dive computers, we're really left to wonder if there actually is a single clear answer to what stripped these brilliant experts of their lives. Will the cave ever truly surrender its final secret?
Like this video, share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to History Doc.